So Kathy, for purposes of the minutes, we're starting at 7:32 in this special meeting of the Conservation Commission. Again, thank you all for taking time out to meet a second time this month. We have one primary target, but the first item on the agenda is the regular meeting schedule for 2023. I did distribute a schedule that follows the Thursday at 7:30 p.m. schedule. I will make two notes about it. And maybe I'll start from the bottom. December 21st is close to Christmas. I don't know if that gives anyone any issues and would necessitate a change. And the other note is that I do know that on this Thursday, on April 20th, I will not be available. And so I think, Sharon, that would probably lead you with the mechanics of getting the meeting and the agenda set up and so forth.
April 20th, I think I should be here. I agree that it's a little close to Christmas. If we could switch that one to the week before, I think the chances of it working out for people might be improved. How do other people feel about that?
I think that makes sense. And then I would like to request that we take one of the summer months off, July or August.
I'll second that.
Okay. Why 21st? So in December, rather than the 21st, we would meet, I assume, on the 14th, correct?
The week before.
Before?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And as far as the summer goes, we traditionally have not done that, but you know, I know it is frequently done by the boards and commissions. Any preference to which month that would be?
I don't have a preference, but I would obviously like one of them.
Yeah.
I think August is a more common one to take off, so that might be a good idea. Decide we need a special meeting, we can always, figure something out if there's a lot we're dealing with.
Okay. So with those two changes, I guess I will. And Paul, you haven't commented any comment, Paul? Is
all those changes are fine with me.
Yeah.
The schedule was fine with me too. So if we want to make changes to it, the changes are fine also.
okay. So I guess I'll motion to that we adopt the calendar on the third Thursday of the month at 7:30, with the exception of not meeting in August and in December, meeting on the second Thursday, December 14th.
I second.
Second. Okay, we will need to do a sort of a roll call, I guess, just because we got visual on everybody. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so it looks like everyone, Kathy, and we're done. Okay, second item is the 19 Manila Avenue. I hope that everybody got the chance to go down and put eyes on that site. I will share some information that I had gotten from Chris Sullivan when I asked, raised, and it was something last time, if you remember, I just didn't know much about, and they were talking about parking in the rear. And Chris clarified for me that what they were really doing was saying that they were going to park. The parking would be on the town right of way on the off the street. So the parking is not defined to be part of the subdivision. It's parking on the street. And Chris, in the course of conversation, her point was most everybody in town uses the town right of way when they drive into their driveway. And so it's a pretty accepted, she didn't use these words, but sounds like it's just an expectation of the town that people will use that for the purpose of automobile transit.
So to clarify that, Tim, so looking at the drawing along South Bradley Road where it has the dotted line for the property line, which looks like it coincides with the line of asphalt of the town road. You're saying that between where the dotted line, it's the 4,000 square feet, for instance, for lot 12, between the pavement and the house, that would be parking? Is that what you're saying?
I think we're almost there. That the edge of the pavement being defined as they do with the dotted lines. The edge of the pavement is not the end of the town property. The end of the town property is the back of the lots. And that space in between, which I measured as is about 17 feet, that is the town right of way, or town land and town right of way. I guess that's town land because it's part of the road, so I correct myself. And they would plan to park on that.
So just as a reference, a typical garage is at least 20 feet deep. So if it's only 17 feet, how do you, I mean, your car is going to be sticking out of it, isn't it?
Well, I don't, they're not proposing a garage that I see.
No, I'm just saying, just in
car-
terms of reference, in terms of length
Yeah.
of a car, typical
Cars are,
space.
I don't, well, I know how long, the question would be how long are cars, because they don't have to account for the framing in the back, front and back, and the garage door. They just have to put a car in there. And I don't know how they're I don't know if they are planning on straight in parking or sort of parallel with the back of the lots parking. I don't know that. But the point was that it's not part of the subdivision.
So basically, we're losing more land than gaining any because that
Well,
was,
the town's not losing any land. The land will be there. It'll just be parked upon frequently. Those across the street, it's parked on frequently because people use the ball field.
will it be asphalt or will it be paved, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, that's a valid question, and I don't know. But that's a question for zoning. I would think not.
Are these two family
I don't know.
houses? Tim, are these two family houses?
That was my understanding. Yeah.
So you would think that if it was a two-family house, that you would want to see at least 4 parking spaces for each house.
I don't know what the regulations are.
Hmm.
That's a zoning question, and may come up at the public hearing on Monday.
Sure.
So Tim, you had an idea of where we could have some land that was preserved. What were you thinking? Because I'm seeing more
So
developed land lot.
if looking at the coming away from South Bradley Road in the back and going to the front, so my perspective will be from the front here, looking at the 3 proposed lots. The lot on the left, you can see, if you see, is designated to be 40 feet across, 40 feet wide. The lot in the middle is 45. and the lot on the right is 45.
Mhm.
So my thought is that if the zoning commission would work with the applicant and reduce the lot on the right, which is lot 15, 17, to 40 feet across,
Uh-huh.
to be the same as the lot on the left. That's of course would be 5 feet. And that would be the grant. But on the diagrams where you see the edge of the pavement on South Bradley Road, there's 10 to 12 feet of non-paved surface before the property line on what will be lot 15 to 17. So that would give you 15 to 17 feet strip, which could then be used for pedestrian passage, pedestrian pathway, a pollinator pathway, some type of plantings.
So which lot is this you're referring to, Tim? I missed that.
So the lot 15 to 17, the one on the right, looking at it from the Manila Avenue perspective,
Right,
it's supposed to be 40, is planned right now for 45 feet.
right.
And if it got reduced, the lot, and you can see if you look at the building square, there's some extra space on the right. You know, as compared to the lot on the left, lot 12, which is 40 feet wide, and the building square still fits in, but it's tighter. So if
What's
you-
what's the setback? I didn't mean to interrupt you. What's the setback on that, on the area that you're talking about?
the,
Do you know
the
what
set-
this,
the setback from the road?
yeah, what's the current setback?
I'm not sure I totally understand what you mean, Paul.
So what's shown on this drawing is there's the property line along South Bradley Road on the far right-hand side for
Right.
lot 17, 15 through 17.
Right.
What's that distance between the pavement and the setback line? Did you know what that is?
So the distance between the property line of lot 15, 17 and the pavement of South Bradley Road, I measured that on the town GIS system. They have a little measuring tool. I measured that is, 10 to 12 feet. It looked like it varied a little bit.
Is that on the side, on the right side you're
On
referring
the
to?
right side, right.
Okay. And you're saying that you're suggesting instead of 10 to 12 feet, it should be somewhere between 15 and 17 feet?
Well, yeah, that 5 of the feet would come from shrinking that lot from 45 feet wide to 40 feet wide. And so the 5 plus the 10, 12 would be, 15 to 17 feet wide up that strip. So the grant, the open space would officially be 5 feet running the length, whatever that length is. Which is not a lot, but you have the 10 to 12 feet that's already there. And that would give you at least enough to put in, a pervious type of walkway. So people wouldn't be walking on the road and strip it with a pollinator garden or, some type of garden or plantings that the community could decide on and do and reduce the, it would widen out, making sure that the building, wasn't so close to Bradley Road that you get a tunnel effect going through there, and just provide a little bit of green for the people and a little safer passage to the open space that's the ball fields and the open space behind on the other side of South Bradley Road in the rear.
So that would provide approximately 500 square feet. So 10% of the subdivision is 1,300 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tim,
Yes.
Tim, this is
Hi,
Valerie.
Val.
Hi, hi,
Welcome.
hi, everybody. I had read on a different document, and I believe it was the Woodbridge proposed zoning, and pardon me if we're not, supposed to comment on this part of it, but I had read even under the affordable housing, that they were looking to maximize dwelling units at 15 dwelling units per acre. And so when I looked up this development and saw 3 houses on a third of an acre, I think that if we had to extrapolate that, that would be more like 18 houses per acre. Are you familiar with any kind of maximum dwelling per acre? And can we extrapolate that way? Or is it just per acre that it's 15? And, can that be extrapolated? Because right now, based on the number of units here and the lot size, that would come out to 18 units per acre.
Yeah, was that question for me, Val?
Yeah, yes.
For the group. I know nothing about it. I, sort of rely on TPZ to be looking at what their regulations are, and if the plan matches regulations. Yeah.
Well, it was.
Our interest should be, helping TPZ, recommending to them, understand open space and what makes sense if in terms of the particular subdivision. The zoning regulation, that's something I want, or I think we should, as a commission, should get into.
The
You know,
baseball field, I'm sorry, the baseball field across the street's owned by the town?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so there's a significant chunk of open space directly across from it?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. The question is, you'd love to have 10%, but there's no 10% to squeeze out of this subdivision that you can see when allow, and it in the way the plan is now. Now, if the TBZ says, no, you can't have three units here, they look, Val's type of comment, and they say that doesn't comply with what we've said for density, and the applicant comes back with 2 units, then there may be more room for open space. And I think we can have a turn at it there. But right now, the way it's proposed, this is what I could see. And Kate, as long as you brought up the park, I'll just comment that that at the corner of South Bradley Road, if you went down there, hopefully you saw this, there was a gate. And for many years that gate was closed and there was no through traffic. When I went down there, and I'll ask you if you remember, any of you remember, that gate was open. And so it looks like now they're allowing through traffic there.
When did you
Which
go
is one
there?
reason I say it'd be nice to be able to provide for the people a pathway along the
Tim,
side there.
Tim,
Yes. Hi, Barbara.
when did you go there? Because when I went there, within the week after we talked about it at our last meeting, it was completely closed off.
Was it?
I looked at it yesterday and it was closed off also.
I went the other day and it was closed.
Okay, well then, something was different about the day I went, which was before our last meeting. And
just
I
want-
was wondering do we have any idea what the intentions of the town is with that little piece of road? I mean, would it, not that this has anything to do with the owners of the property, but could it be made into just a through green space? Under the ideas that this is what we're really after, is more green space and pass throughs.
there's a good thought, because if that's a good thought. Now and I don't know what the town's thinking was of having the gate there, other than when I used to live on Manila Avenue. And I think what I heard is it was really the residents who didn't want a lot of through traffic coming from the ball fields.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Which is understandable. But
Okay.
I mean, that might even be more reason to
Yeah.
to
So
move it over.
now, whether the town has any safety concern in terms of getting in emergency vehicles, I don't know. That would be the only reason why you wouldn't do it, because if you're closing the gate all the time, or most of the time, then yeah, why not have it all green space?
I mean,
I
this
think
doesn't-
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing,
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything as far as the developers are concerned, but on
Right.
the other hand, if there is green space there and it's not necessary for them to have it, then, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
there's no reason for us to push for nothing.
Right. But as you say, obviously not part of the subdivision discussion, that's a
Right.
different, but that's good thought. Hadn't occurred to me.
I just had a couple comments. One is, I think from a framework, we shouldn't look at what current town-owned land is in a neighborhood and say that gives a developer a pass in having to provide open space. And the other suggestion I had too, from a process perspective, is that I think it would be beneficial for us in our discussions if, as part of the process when a subdivision is being created, is that the applicant come before us and make a suggestion on what they would suggest would be the open space in the land, so we don't have to kind of, and ultimately it might come down to our debating it ourselves and making a decision what we would recommend. But it would be interesting to know what they would suggest, since, they've obviously put a lot of thought into how they want to, or hopefully they put a lot of thought into how they want to lay out these lots. So I just think from a process perspective, we should ask the applicants to make a suggestion. If they don't want to make a suggestion, then I guess then we would have to make our own suggestion. But it would be good to start a dialogue, even though we might not have agreed with some of the suggestions that or the proposal that John Paul had put forward.
Mhm.
It gave us a point to start our discussion on, in terms of what they had ideas on and what they might suggest. So those were my two comments.
So, and Paul, so you're thinking of doing that, or suggesting that we do that more as a matter of course, inviting the applicant to come and speak to us?
Yes, I think so. I mean, they might come up with a suggestion on
Yeah.
how they might figure things differently to
Yeah.
provide the open
Yeah.
space that
No,
we might
I-
not have thought of, as opposed to us trying to shoehorn it into a design that's already been put
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Excellent idea.
Yeah, the designers will go through that process, because they have to figure out how they comply with all the regulations, including the open space. So they're going to take a crack at it. And then, I think it is, I thought it was helpful to have John Paul there. I guess I should say first, we have had 3 different experiences. John Paul, we asked to come and he did. The Rimmon Road, 356 Rimmon, they volunteer a lot of open space, and there was not a suggestion from within the commission that we asked them up again, except for the 10% or the 20-foot easement. So maybe people felt there was no need there, and this one was just snuck up on us. We just got by us.
Sure.
We'll do better on that next time, because we're monitor the TBZ meetings. So, but yeah, I think we get it early enough, we can certainly ask people in. I think that's a good dialogue to have.
Maybe in this subdivision, we could let as a suggestion, we could make a suggestion or a request to the Planning and Zoning Commission that we would like to have 10% set aside. And could we have the applicant speak with us and make a suggestion on what they would recommend, so we can start that dialogue and then revert back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with what our recommendation would be.
Are we required to do this with every single parcel?
No,
Only subdivision.
subdivision.
So we're required for every subdivision to ask for 10%, even if it's.
no,
this-
No,
we're not required to ask for 10%. We as a conservation commission, there's no requirement at us at all. The regulation says the applicant must should present a plan identifying 10% as open space. And there's other language in there says that, you know, should be fulfill the goals of the open space regulation, et cetera. And then it gives deference to the planning and zoning to decide to waive it all together or to ask for modifications.
Okay, I mean, I think we need to be a little discerning here. I mean, some of these lots, this is not a big piece of property.
Right.
And I understand that Paul doesn't want to take into consideration that there's a ball field across the street because of, you know, maybe the impermanent nature of land in town. But I do think we need to take that into consideration. I think a 10% ask on a property this small in one of the few parts of the town that are zoned for density is not ideal for me. So that's my position as one of the members.
Yeah, my perspective on that is that we should, in doing this, we should work with the plan that is available to us as drafted. Not knowing, of course, what TPZ will do in terms of the plan, but given the plan, we should comment on the open space. And if this is acceptable plan to have 3 lots of approximately this size, there's not a lot of options here to get 10% out of this. And TBZ is going to, you know, act, and TBZ, I'll mention again, came very close to just approving this last meeting. And then by a kind of a split vote, they decided to have a public hearing just because of the close nature of the Merritt Avenue and the concerns over density that was raised there. They said they'd have a public meeting on this. So Paul, I think they're hoping to bring this to a close tomorrow night, or excuse me, Monday night. And I would, you know, want to keep that in mind as we plan what to do. And if, you know, just going forward and saying we'd like you to delay, not, and this is not the right way to say it, but to ask them to take a delay, so we could have the designer in and talk about where we might get 10%, where it's, I mean, when I look at it, with this 3 lots, you're not going to get 10%. You're going to, and we should, you know, look to see if we can at least get them to reject the letter of waiver that's going to be given to them tomorrow night or Monday night.
No, I think that's a valid point, Tim, and I agree with you about, you know, looking to have some part of the land as being open space. But I would say that a developer always has the incentive to put as much developable space on a parcel as possible. So, you know, I don't think we should use that as the criteria that we evaluate things, that this is what the developer has proposed, and therefore we have to kind of work with their proposal without considering any allocation to open space, because, you know, it's a financial motivation to put as much on the land as possible.
Right.
And so just from a process perspective, I just go back to the process, because I imagine this is going to come up again in the future. That,
I agree. We should get involved sooner, and this one got by us. So
I do think that we can facilitate that by learning from whomever when the application comes in, so that we can immediately go to the developer and say, remind them that they should be setting aside 10% and they need to take this into consideration in their design. Before it even goes before TPZ. In other words, before they even present their plans to TPZ.
I agree with that also. I mean, it would be a more thoughtful process to have that happen. This will be something that'll be here for.
Rather than learning when they're meeting with TPZ, we need to catch them when they first do the application so that we can make sure that they are considering this. And it would be very helpful, as you say, Paul, to have them come to us first, again, before they're meeting with TPZ, so we can all discuss the thing.
And maybe we come to a solution or resolution that everybody's happy with.
Mhm.
Yeah, excuse me, this is Valerie. I had a discussion, I believe, with Miss Sullivan, Chris Sullivan, and it was a very interesting conversation, and she was explaining the differences between the building department and TP&Z and what were the duties and responsibilities of each. And so I think that would be very helpful also for our committee to hear. The building department is the one that has to adhere to the building and the building codes. And TPZ is, they're responsible for the zoning, which are two different things. And so that was, I think, helpful for me to hear the differences. That the design will come with the building department, not so much with the zoning. Those are two different functions.
I think being thoughtful about this going forward, whether this might take another couple of weeks in the process, is worth it. These houses that are built here are going to be here for 100 years, and there's going to be parking issues and traffic issues and stuff if there is an open space. There's going to be higher density than is practical. The zoning regulations in this part of town have been in place for 120 years or so, and it was before people had cars. So, with us being able to request the 10% open space, might make it manageable for the neighbors in that area where snowplows and emergency vehicles and stuff would be able to get through if there was some open space and not as quite highly dense as this proposal shows.
Paul, I have a question. I'm not sure how does open space equal what you're suggesting? Like, I mean, if we can get that strip along the back, how is that going to change parking or humans?
Well, there'd be less buildable area. I guess that's what the impact would be.
Okay, so that's wading into a territory that's not ours.
Well, I think there's some
that's
overlap.
a zoning issue.
Yeah, I think there's some overlap between, identifying open space. Whenever you identify open space, you're, by definition, taking some of the buildable land away from possible development.
So you want to use the Conservation Commission's ability to ask for open space to reduce density of buildings in town? Is that it?
No, I didn't say that. No.
I don't want to mischaracterize what you're saying, but that's what it sounds like.
No, that's not what I said. So
Can you clarify then? Because I'm trying to understand. You said that this area has been the same for 120 years and that this will change things.
Well, I think if it's less dense, there'll probably be fewer cars and few other issues. It would also be, from a quality of life perspective, would be nice if there was some open space in the area. And since we have the ability to suggest or recommend the open space, I think on a number of levels, it would be beneficial to the neighbors in that area.
Okay, I don't necessarily see how those things are connected, especially when there's a park right across the street. But I think we can agree to disagree.
Okay.
may I make a slight correction? Paul,
Yes, sure.
the zoning regulations came in 1932. So it's slightly under 100 years.
Okay.
Just for clarity's sake and for,
I think Chris told us that when the zoning regulations came into place, this area was grandfathered because the prior regulations were for these very small lots. I guess I don't want to spend too much time on the zoning part of it, but
I
because
just,
that's really not our, as you know, Kate has a valid point. That's really not our purview. But I would like to see a suggestion, at least from the developer, how we would be able to identify 10% open space. But I do think that because the town has a ball field in the area, should not relieve the developer of in our ability to request from TP&Z that there be open space in part of the subdivision.
I agree with that.
I agree with that as well, but I do not consent to this group delaying the action of TP&Z to drag the developer in to meet with us. I think that this can be conveyed by our chair to TP&Z in advance of their meeting next week. But I think that to insert ourselves into this any further beyond asking for 10% is inappropriate.
Well, and let me make sure this was clear. Asking for 10% is not in our purview either. The Conservation Commission has no ability to ask for a applicant for a subdivision for 10%.
Okay, whatever it is then.
Well, it's not 9% or 12%. It's we are acting here as an advocate for open space and have the ability to comment to the Planning and Zoning Commission about what we think of the proposal of the applicant. And in this case, the applicant says there's no room for open space. They said there is no room, and they're going to present the formal waiver letter for this next meeting. So we're just going, and we can't delay the TPZ's decision. We can't ask them. Well, we can, I guess, ask them to delay their decision, but we have no standing to do that.
but Kim, the regulation says that a subdivision should set aside 10%. What we do have the right to do, I believe, is to TP&Z that we feel that there should not be a waiver. There should be 10% set aside. We can't force it, but we certainly could make a recommendation to TP&Z that we want it, that we think it should happen.
Well, it's not that we want it, but the when you rephrased it, yes, that we think there should be.
Yes, exactly.
It's our recommendation to planning and zoning, right?
I'm sorry, Paul, excuse me.
Our recommendation, the way Chris described it, is we don't have the authority to require it. We have the ability to make a recommendation.
Right.
Planning and zoning.
Yeah, and what would happen is if we think it through, try to think it through, we write that recommendation and deliver it to them, and we say we think there should be 10% on this development. They're
Or
going
we
to say,
could say we think there should, because it's such a dense place, there should be 5%. I mean, we don't, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a total 10%. If that
well,
be our recommendation.
well, and maybe that's where I jumped to by saying, where could you have some open space that would contribute to the sound planning and good public policy that's outlined in the regulation. And what the only thing I could come up with was doing that strip along the side, because that would fulfill, some of you seem to have the regulation in front of you in in the outline there, it talks about having walkways and linear pathways, and et cetera. So, I think it would contribute to that. I don't want, I guess I fear going in without some recommendation, because if we just say we'd like 10% or 5%, then they're going to say, well, we don't know where to get it. There's not a lot of space here, so they'll just say, thanks for submitting it, but they're not, I don't think they'd take action on it without a concrete proposal. But, I could be wrong on that.
I think that's a very valid point, Tim. So I
do think it's a
agree with
valid
that.
point.
Yeah,
I agree
Well-
with it completely.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, we're late on this one, and that's a shame. And we may have, something different may have come out of it with a discussion with the developer, but at this point, this one's down the road, and it's very small. This is not like we're, it's a lot of space in any case. What's the total footage? Did you calculate it, Paul, before?
It's like 1,300 square feet.
Okay.
So it's not
So
a
we'd be
large
talking
house.
130 square feet would be the 10%?
No. 10% is 1,300 square feet.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay.
One thing I was struck by is the size of these houses relative to the size of the other houses, and how much larger they are, at least if they're similar to the ones they're proposed or that have been built rather on Merritt Avenue. I think it's something that planning and zoning should, and I guess if it's not our place as the Conservation Commission, but they ought to look at the zoning to make sure that they really think that this is doable. And I know that's not our purview. I know Kate's just about to say it's not our purview, but as a resident of the town, I think it should be something maybe people that have thoughts on it should suggest, because I don't think it's a workable regulation as it is today. But
And
I don't
you
wanna-
and those,
I don't wanna
those
spend
people
time
are
on this.
welcome to go to the P and Z meeting and express your opinions about the size of the building.
Yep.
Yeah. Seems like we're sending you off to a lot of meetings, Paul. I know you're going to try to go represent some thoughts on the meeting on 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue.
Well, I don't think your suggestion is bad, Tim, and I think probably coming at this point, going back, if people are not willing to have a discussion with the developer, that our only choice is to, I guess, suggest something that's that we can suggest, but again, I just think it's a bad process.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that's come out of this for me is that we need a way to work better with Chris Sullivan to know at the very beginning when this process is, so we can help people set the expectations of what would be the best situation for the environment as well as for their development, because right now the development gets the lion's share of the attention and the environmental aspect gets less because we haven't been at the table. So I really think that that is a key feature. That said, I agree that if we don't have a concrete proposal, we are likely to not have any land saved. And I think, Tim, yours is, certainly doable, much less than what we could possibly request.
Yeah.
And any more space we can get from that road closure that could be, if that could all be green and
Yep.
just have large plants, so a fire truck could go over it, that might even be, a
Yep.
nicer. So I would maybe propose that we vote on that and also vote on, and maybe, so that would be my proposal, that this comes to a vote.
Having come late, may I ask one question which may have been covered completely? Has anybody considered and found a problem with the length along, I guess it's Bradley Road South or whatever it's called, across the street from the ballpark. The other side, another side of this whole property. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
You mean the
No.
parking area? You mean where people were
Oh, I
parking?
guess where people park now, yes, that
Yeah.
length along there. Has anybody thought about that?
I assume that's already town property. But I mentioned an observation that I had. I went down there yesterday at a cold, raw day with a rainstorm, so there obviously wasn't anybody on the ball field. And there were 3 cars parked in that parking lot. So
Mhm.
if there was anybody that were to drive their car to that ball field and there were these houses there, there certainly wouldn't be enough places for people to park.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think we're talking that parking lot. I'm talking about on the back side of this piece of property, running parallel to the road. Not the road that's closed off, but the road that's still open. That's what I'm asking.
And what was your question, Barbara?
Has anybody considered that as possible set aside for green space?
Well,
I think
You
there's
know,
some trees there.
if you have the diagram of the 3
Mhm.
lots and the
Mhm.
back side, you can tell where the back side of the lots are, the privately owned
Mhm.
lots. There's a more technical diagram of the proposal that has not only the lots, but it has the edge of the pavement area on South Bradley Road.
Mhm.
And the amount of space between the back of those lots and the edge of the pavement for the road is about 17 feet.
Yeah, that's where the trees are, right?
And that's where the trees are. That's town land. So that's already,
And that is
that's our-
town land. Okay, that's what I asked. I'm sorry, I
yes.
was coming
Yep.
in. late.
Nope.
I-
No.
Okay.
No problem.
Well, I would be certainly in agreement with Sharon, and I guess Tim is to ask or to suggest, recommend that
Mhm.
that
Request.
strip put in along the unused road
Yep.
be asked for as a portion. Heaven knows what percentage it is, but it's a little percentage. As much in feeling strongly that we should try in every instance to get up to 10%. And I don't think that these people should just say, well, there is nothing to give. Because there is. And then hopefully we could go back to the town and say, how about making this road into a non-road? But that's a different subject entirely.
All right. I can try to phrase something to say, that the that the planning and zoning should make every effort to obtain open space set aside at the rate of 10%. I'll try to phrase that in a way that doesn't get their hackles up, and just to get that message across, because it is what it's in the regulation, and it's what the developer is supposed to do. So, but then we'll pivot to say, as the plan is now proposed, and if the plan stays the same in its dimensions of 3, this is what our recommendation is. The recommendation is that they reject the request for waiver. That's the recommendation. And then
And
this is what could be done for open space within the current plan. And if the current plan changes, then the opens up the discussion again. So
the current plan is rejected.
well, well, I don't know if the planning and zoning just goes straight to rejection. I think they raise their objections and give the
Yeah, okay.
applicant a chance to
Define.
comply with the findings, before.
Yep.
Okay, and then the other thing I'll do is I will write a communication to Chris and ask if in this special case of subdivisions that we could be notified when she becomes aware of it, just so that we can do the early intervention and work with the developer, just not to delay in any respect the process for that reason. And I know Chris has lots of different people who are asking for information, and so it's hard for her to remember to notify all the time, but I'll make the request and see if we can get that. Maybe on the heels of our coming up with, a suggestion that'll have built some confidence that we're trying to be constructive.
I think it would also streamline the process for TP&Z.
Yes.
If, as you suggested earlier with the Merritt Avenue development, that we've had some discussion with them, and there's a meeting of the minds or some common ground that we could reference to TP&Z, and that our request is, we'd like to see open space, and this is some of the things we've talked about. So, if both parties were able to come forward with a proposal that were satisfactory to both, both us and the developer, and we could recommend the developer. I mean, it could be a situation like Merritt Avenue where the developer suggests the open space be underwater.
And I think most developers are happy to do this, based on the
Yeah, they don't want
limited
any
set of
delays. They
facts
just
I
want to
have,
get
but
it done. Yeah.
yeah, they want to get it done, and they know this would help streamline it. It's a requirement. And so, okay. So what I've outlined, and any other questions on that, because I'll write that up into a memo along with a couple of points I already mentioned.
Good, Tim. Could you send us a copy of that memo when you've done it?
Well, when I finish it,
Yeah.
I will send it on. I'm also, I'm going to get it right into to Chris, because I'm sure that the packages may have already gone out to TBZ.
No, not to delay it. I'm just saying it so that we can keep that in our files of what.
Oh
you've
yeah,
done.
no, absolutely. But I'm gonna send it right in. I'll send it to you immediately upon doing that. And I'm also going to make a contact to the attorney who spoke for the applicant at the last TPZ meeting, to let them know that this is the recommendation we're going to make to TPZ, just so they're not surprised. And we would have explained that we would have talked to them sooner, but we didn't. It hadn't met until tonight. And maybe build a relationship in case this comes back again, and we have another opportunity to talk with that applicant and his
for
attorney about
formality-
additional space.
For
Excuse me.
formality's sake, shouldn't we vote on this? So that we
Yes,
know
I
that
think,
we all
well,
agree?
I think we should probably have a motion that we should send a memo, and I think we should. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion. I move that we write a letter with the proposal that he talked about again, about approximately 5% in open space. And that he'll contact the developer as well to communicate that with him. And we're hoping that the town does not provide a waiver, or the TP&Z does not provide a waiver, but considers our proposal.
I second it.
Thank you. Good. So again, Sharon, you'll have to verbalize your answer, but all in favor?
Aye.
Do we have discussion on this before we vote? or-
No, sure. We've had a lot of discussion, but yes, ball properly. Any other discussion?
So I just make one comment is I'm apt to vote against it. I think your idea is based on what's been proposed is probably the only thing that we can suggest, or we have very little options to suggest, but I would say, going forward, I can't think of too many instances where we would want to recommend anything less than the 10% that we can ask for. So for that reason, I would vote against it. And it's not because I think you have a bad idea. I just think that going forward, we can ask for 10%, and I think we should.
I guess maybe we should add that we don't want to be a precedent that we ask for less than 10%. It's just this particular circumstance where we're coming to it late in the game.
That was my only comment.
Yep. Noted. Understood. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll call the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand, except for Sharon, who needs to
Aye.
verbalize. And it looks like that's Tim and Valerie, Sharon and Kate. Aye.
And
All those
Barbara.
opposed, and Barbara?
Yep.
Is an aye. Okay.
Yes.
And all those opposed would be Paul? Okay.
Yes.
And no abstentions. Okay, thank you.
I have one more point before we end our evening. Given that TP&Z seems to be a critical player in this, maybe like we've had Tony Genovese and other people come, maybe we should have the head of TP&Z come and talk to them, maybe not tell us their role, but maybe try to build a liaison or how we want to talk about how we want to work together with them.
It's a
Yeah,
good idea.
Not a bad idea, Sharon, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know who it is?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we know, but who is it? Should I say it that way?
Well, the chair of TPC is Rob Klee.
Who? I'm sorry.
Robert Clee.
The last name is Klee, Klee.
Okay, okay.
And I had the opportunity, I spent 15 minutes with him the other evening outside of town hall, and just the first time we had met. And I won't take the time now, but I covered a couple of different things with him of importance to the commission, and maybe at the next meeting I can comment on those. But so we started to build a relationship. So we can have him in, certainly. Okay, the other last item in the agenda, and I'll really curtail this. The budget is due. There was a glitch, and I think basically because Betsy Yagler, it was not there. The budget didn't, the budget package didn't get to us. So a little bit behind the eight ball here. I did send out a note, didn't really hear back much in terms of thoughts on new programs that we might want to think about budgeting for the 23-24 fiscal year, which will start July 1st of 23. And this is always tough because you're just not even halfway through this current budget year and try to think about next year. So we still, have money set aside for certain areas, the boot brush, hooked to the jumping worms now. Some of the trail signage is a category, and some printing for maps if we get a new Greenway map done up. So, I assume when I put this together, I'll sort of continue those same programs. If you, and we don't have to have a discussion about that now, but if you want to think about that.
I had a question.
Yeah.
We have the plan of conservation and development coming up.
Yep.
Would there be any requirements or would it be helpful to have something in a budget to help us? I've not been involved in it before. I don't know if there's resources that we would need or anything that we would need to support that effort.
So a couple of things on that. That's one of the items Rob Clee and I talked about. Very well, actually, that came up in the meeting we were attending, and so I asked a question that he answered about it. The TP&Z is responsible for the document, and they have put money in their budget for a consultant to help with the process. So I imagine, Paul, if something was specific to us, we'd probably get it covered out of that. I mean, because they're really, they own the document and putting together. And he acknowledged that they will work with the Conservation Commission on it. So I'm not.
Oh, I thought the Conservation Commission, and maybe it's something we need to have explained, is what our role is in the plan of conservation development, because I thought we had a significant role in that.
Yeah, I think we do, because a large segment of it is around open space. However, Rob has not been through this before. I mean, it's 8 years ago that it was done, 9 years ago. So not a lot of people that are on the commissions. There are some people here and there who have been through it. So I don't think Rob can speak to that right away. My sense is that it gets directed through the consulting firm, and they sort of pull people in and start to talk to them, and work develops out of that as you have to gather information and sessions on reviewing what it is that they might want to put in the document. I think our role leading up to it, the things we have to think about for next year, which I don't think are budgetable items, is looking at the open space plan, because that will be a source document for the plan of conservation and development. So we can, I feel we did one part of it this year with the Greenway plan, and that'll be part and parcel of the open space plan. But there's other sections in there that we probably want to look at and spend our time getting that ready so that we're prepared when we're asked and they start looking for information to put in the plan of conservation and development.
I think it would be good to have some clarity in terms of what our role exactly is. Just because I'm a little bit unclear, I've heard people talk about prior members of the Conservation Commission talking about what their input was to the plan of conservation and development. And maybe they overstated what their input was, but it sounded like they had a very, very big part in developing the plan. So I'd like to get just a clear picture in terms of what our role is and what we should be contributing versus not.
They're not ready yet. I think this is something that they're thinking is due in 2024. I think they've put in the money in the budget to have money starting July 1st next year, and that's when I think we'll start to get some. I think there'll be some planning meetings starting up in that time frame, and that's when we'll get clarity.
Okay, maybe Chris could explain to us how that works too, or somebody that's more knowledgeable about it. I mean, none of us were on the Conservation Commission when the last plan was done. And my guess is none of the people that are on the Planning and Zoning were on the Planning and Zoning Commission when the last plan was done.
Yeah.
So it would be good to know what.
That's
what
why
the
they
process
hire a
is.
consultant.
Well, you know,
Because the
Consultants are
consultants
dangerous.
do it, they do it all the time.
well,
Yeah.
consultants are dangerous because,
Yeah.
you know, they have their own ideas and it would be good to know what our input would be.
What they have is a template, I think. And I think that's, then you fill in the template, so, okay.
We may not want,
Excuse me, Barbara?
I said, we may not want to fill in the template.
Template, yeah.
That's
Um,
the whole point of getting ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have another meeting going on, so I have to.
yeah,
I'm-
no, I think we're done if somebody
Okay.
wants to motion of an adjournment.
I so moved.
move.
I second.
That,
Okay, we're adjourned.
Mhm.
Thank you
We're
all.
adjourned.
See you,
bye-bye.
Kate.
See you in a
Bye.
couple weeks.